You can't be serious. I mean, you can't make this stuff up if you tried. I thought there was something going on. I really thought there was something going on with this young person who had allegedly set the Molotov cocktails off at the Tesla dealer on State Line Road a few weeks back. It just didn't add up. The photos did not make a lot of sense, did they?
I didn't know you could use glamour shot for a mug shot. Right? Yeah. Go down the mall.
Yeah. Well, as it turns out, we now have found out that 19-year-old Owen McIntyre, who was arrested earlier this month in Massachusetts and is facing federal charges in the Western District of Missouri for allegedly using a homemade incendiary device to ignite 2 electric vehicles on fire on March 17th, has been released from federal custody. Why was he released from federal custody? Well, this is an individual who, according to court records, has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, depression, and gender dysphoria, and requires daily medication and treatment. I am not kidding you as we get going on a Thursday morning. They have released the alleged Tesla arsonist because he needs to get his treatment because he is transgender or she is transgender. I don't even know which way this thing is going anymore. I have no idea. His name is Owen. I don't know if that's his birth name. I don't know if that's his new name. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. It's a coin flip. But that is where the story's at. And here's what Fox 4 reported on it late last night. Here we go.
Bria and John, the government wanted Owen McIntyre to spend the time before trial behind bars, but the judge in Boston sided with the defense in this case, which cited multiple medical issues facing the 19-year-old, including autism spectrum disorder, gender dysphoria, and ADHD. McIntyre's attorney argued the teen should be released citing serious and ongoing medical needs and treatments that could not or would not be provided while in federal detention. The defense filing says McIntyre is being treated for depression and since March has been receiving gender-affirming care. That care would likely be interrupted or terminated in federal custody.
So the judge sided with the defense, saying release Owen McIntyre because he needs to get his hormone treatments because he's trans. Well, I guess I should start making sure I carry a purse and a wig with me in case I ever get pulled over and get arrested. It seems like that's my, and potentially your, get out of jail free card. So that's I guess, my takeaway and my lesson from the story. We could all learn one here. I'm on board with it. John, you want to do that too?
Well, I'm having trouble believing that there's stuff you can get in Kansas City you can't get in Boston.
Well, that's true as well.
How about that?
That's a great point. So I couldn't believe it, but it makes sense. Because when the photos first came out of this individual who allegedly set the fires at the Tesla dealer on State Line Road, I'm looking at these and I'm like, man, this doesn't stack up. The guy's name is Owen McIntyre. Looking at the story, I'm saying to myself, okay, what is it about this that isn't making sense? And I thought this was what was going on, but you don't want to say that. I mean, even I try to know where the line is. You don't want to say that and then be like, well, I got to walk that one back. You just don't want to do it. So that comes out, and I'm like, okay, here we go. This is it. We got the juice, and now you have everybody commenting on it, including Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is, of course, a top advisor to the President of the United States, and he put out a post on this last night, and here's what he wrote on X. Stephen Miller writes, judicially imposed anarcho-tyranny. That is a perfect response. He shared the clip to Fox 4 here in Kansas City. That's right, Stephen Miller. And I shared it on my X account at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. But that's what's going on right now. So you have a judge from Boston, because that's where he was arrested, who decides, hey, you know what? This guy needs his hormone therapy, so we're going to let this thing roll. It's going to be all good. We're happy here. This is unbelievable. But it's also very much par for the course. And it's sad to even think this is a possibility, but it's where we find ourselves right now. 913-408-7957. On the text line, Pete, maybe Owen can torch another dealership while he's out of prison, and maybe things end up even worse this time. Then the judge will definitely look awful. Yeah, I mean, that's the risk the judge is taking. The judge is admitting that this person is not mentally well. Clearly. It's indisputable at this point. The judge is admitting that this person is not mentally well. But under the ruse that has become this entire issue and the way that we kind of treat this issue with kid gloves, we end up with a story like this, where the guy literally sets 2 Tesla Cybertrucks on fire. God knows what could have happened to somebody. And they say, well, don't worry, young man or young woman, I don't know. It's all right because you're transgender and you need some therapy and hormone treatment. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And judges are siding with these individuals on this front. Ashley's in Kansas City. Go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, Mundo. This is just ridiculous to me. This kid started these hormones in March. Do we think that maybe, just maybe, the male body is not equipped to handle the amount of estrogen that is being pumped into this 19-year-old male body? It takes years to learn to ride the dragon with the estrogen that is pumped into your body as a 12-year-old girl, a body that's equipped by nature to handle that amount of estrogen. When you go against that nature and pump estrogen into a body that's supposed to be filled with testosterone, like a 19-year-old male, it's not going to be able to handle it, and you're going to have incidents. Now, what I don't get is you're able to go to college and you're able to get your affirming care when you're in college. If you want to continue to get your gender affirming care, don't go out committing crimes. Sorry, you get to go to prison.
Yep.
I don't agree with this. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
It just makes me angry that now, because this kid wants to transition, he's going to get away with this. My son went to school with him. I know other things that I can't mention because it's rumored. But my son has personal experience with this young man, and I wish that he were in prison.
Hang tight. Stay close to us, Ashley. We appreciate that. And you know what? You bring up a very good point. The best point that Ashley brought up there was when she said the gender-affirming care for this individual, and I'll use my air quotes when I say it, began in March of this year. The incident at the Tesla dealer happened on March 17th. So this person is only a few weeks into the treatment anyway. It's not like they're a year into the treatment or 6 months into the treatment, and God forbid, I don't know, something happens and you lose your man boobs. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But you're a month into the whole thing. I mean, that's barely anything anyway. And then to her point, who knows what that does to you psychologically at that age, because this happened back to back when the treatment started.
Yeah, it could have set him off to set the fireworks off or whatever it was.
It's entirely possible. You just don't know what it does to your brain, right? 19 years old, full of testosterone at that age. And then you start putting yourself on the estrogen, and it's like, okay, what does that do? Do we have any research on what that does to your brain? Like any research whatsoever on what that does to your brain? Or do we not care in the name of gender-affirming care? Excellent points brought up there. And now this story, it was national, obviously, a few weeks ago when it happened. But this takes on a whole new layer. 913-408-7957 is our text line and our studio line on KCMO. Already got people saying Ashley's the caller of the day. It's only 6:14, all right? We got 3 hours and 15 minutes until we announce the caller of the day at 9:35 this morning here on KCMO. So she was great, but pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. We got a lot to talk about this morning.
Some days the bar is higher than others.
That's true. That'll be a tough one to beat, no doubt about it. But it's early, all right? It's very early. We've got a great show lined up for you here. Quentin Lucas, the mayor of Kansas City, at 7:30. Bill O'Reilly at 8:30 this morning. after he was co-moderating a town hall with President Trump last night. We aired it here on KCMO Talk Radio, and if you missed any of it, it was actually really well done. Bill O'Reilly, Stephen A. Smith, Chris Cuomo, Steve Bannon, James Carville, they had it all going across the board. And Trump went on to explain his latest thinking around tariffs, following up on those GDP numbers yesterday. What did the president say? You heard it here on KCMO last night, and we'll share it with you next on 95.7 FM. I didn't know what to expect last night, but I thought News Nation just crushed it in their 2-hour President Trump town hall that they aired that featured Bill O'Reilly, Chris Cuomo, and Stephen A. Smith. But then they brought on the raging Cajun himself. James Carville was there, slurring his way through it in his LSU crew neck and the tightest pair of jeans I've ever seen a 70-year-old man in. And then Steve Bannon was there as well. So, I mean, it was a very diverse, when it comes to ideological, group of individuals who participated in this last night. President Trump was there. Bobby Kennedy was there as well. And it was really well done. We aired it last night, 8 to 10 p.m. here on KCMO Talk Radio. And the president was asked, of course, the GDP numbers came out yesterday, negative. So everybody is, or I should say, those who want to see the president fail are using the GDP number that came in at negative 0.3% as a way to say, see, we told you so. This guy's going to drive us into a recession. You just watch. We are all going to hell in a handbasket. We know the main driver of this is what? The tariffs. And I have a great explanation on that I'll get to here in a minute. But first, Trump talked about being flexible on these tariffs last night on News Nation. And here is what he had to say.
Problem is I have, Chris, is I have to be flexible because as you do things in life and in business, you need flexibility. You can't just be hard line and I'm going to run right through a wall and I'm never going to go over it or around it. I'm going to go straight. You have to be able to dodge and move and be flexible, and especially in business. Now, with the cars, I'm getting a 25% tariff for the people. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars, but they're hurt because they can't switch over 100% of the content of the car within a very short period of time. So they came to see me. I understood their problem, and I gave them a period of a year where I brought it down, and then another year. So I gave them a short period, 2 years, where they have to be switched over 100%, where every single part in the car is made in the USA. Now, if I didn't do that, it would have been very, very tough for them. And so what I am is flexible. And if I didn't do that, it would be very tough for these companies. And these companies, it's a transition period, Chris. And transition's an important word because as you do things, you'll say, well, it's like being on the battlefield. You're on the battlefield. Sometimes you're going to move to the left flank, but then you end up moving to the right flank. And it's very much like that in business. And frankly, it's very much like that in life.
You know, Trump is no matter what the haters say, he's not really an ideologue. I mean, he certainly has his beliefs on immigration and tariffs and trade and the economy. There's no doubt about it. But he's not one of these wonks who's just like studied it. You know, he's not one of these like think tank guys who just writes papers about it and writes about how the world should be. He understands, like, yes, I have my visions. I have my ideology. But at the same time, I realize that I've got to be flexible. And if the car companies are coming to me and saying, listen, we want to make more of this in the U.S., we want to play ball, but we can't do it by next month. Okay, all right, then we'll make some exceptions. In the meantime, we keep working on some trade deals. And that's when you heard from the president there. Now, it creates a difficult landscape for him, and here's why. The car manufacturers in this case, or the businesses who are getting some of the exceptions, they know what they have. They know what they need to do, and they understand what's at stake. The rest of us don't really get it, right? Like, I can't tell you the exceptions for this market, the exceptions for that market, this industry, that industry. I can't explain it because it's changing so quickly. And that's okay. I'm not saying I have to, but my point is it gets muddied for those of us who are just kind of watching from afar, even though the people in the inner circle understand what's going on. And that's what matters the most. But this really has been more about how it's perceived by the rest of us when it's not clear to us who's getting what the deadlines are, when these jobs might be coming back to the United States of America. That's what makes it a little muddy. But the president, to me, sounded very confident in his plan. And this despite the fact that GDP numbers came in negative yesterday. Now, why did they come in negative? If you missed E.J. Antoni, he's an economist with the Heritage Foundation. He explained this perfectly at the end of our show yesterday. It was late, so I know you're here at 6:25, and you might not be here at 9:45. I hope you are, but, if you're not, I get it. Hopefully you're at the office streaming us on the app, but if you're not, totally fine. E.J. Antoni explained this better than anybody I heard yesterday on why these numbers came in negative and why the story is not, oh my gosh, recession is happening. But the devil instead is in the details. Here's what he said.
What happened under Biden?
Hold on.
This is just goes down to how we calculate GDP. You basically add together consumer spending, investment, government purchases, and then a category we call net exports. And if you look within net exports themselves add to GDP, but imports subtract. And so if imports and exports are both rising at the same amount, there's no actual impact on GDP. But if we all of a sudden start exporting a ton of stuff around the world, that's a sign the economy's growing. If, however, all we're doing is importing, that's a sign the economy's declining. So we subtract imports from GDP, and the result in this instance, as you put it, people are trying to get ahead of tariffs. It shows up as negative GDP. But the funny thing is, next quarter, the second quarter, what will happen is you won't have all of those imports coming in because what should have been imported in the second quarter was imported in the first. So a huge drop in imports next quarter will show up as a surge in GDP.
That is the kind of information that you are just not going to get from any of your legacy media outlets. You think the Kansas City Star is going to have any kind of a nuanced conversation around that? Hell no. You know that, and I know that. But when you look at that GDP number and you realize people front-loaded their imports trying to get ahead of the tariffs, that then negatively impacts GDP. But then you look at what that could mean for Q2, where suddenly our exports may tremendously exceed our imports because people are not going to be importing as much in Q2. You may have then a GDP explosion. And what's the media going to do then? Oh, my goodness gracious, John.
When your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for 628.
Yeah. I didn't even take any. What do you call that? Econ, I guess?
Econ 101 was not your special at Baker, huh?
No, I just heard my friends repeating that and go, well, I can handle that.
Yeah, that's good enough for me.
I memorized it. Here I am at 65 killing it.
That's outstanding. News in 2 minutes. We're coming back with big layoffs somewhere, but why isn't it getting Doge-level attention here locally? We'll explain next. Something tells me this won't get the same level of attention as, 114 IRS workers getting let go here in Kansas City. 6:35. Good morning. Glad you're here on 95.7 FM. So, Briggs & Stratton in Lee Summit will be closing permanently coming up on July the 2nd. That's right. This is according to a notice that was put out yesterday. 90 workers are going to be laid off. Now, this got local news attention, and it is obviously a notable story. But it's basically the same number of people who lost their jobs at the IRS here in Kansas City a few weeks ago. Will there be massive protests as Briggs & Stratton plans to permanently lay off these 90 workers at two of its Billy Goat manufacturing facilities in Lee Summit this summer? Or do you think this will just be a blip in the local news and everybody will move on? Well, you know the answer and I know the answer. Of course, this story will be forgotten by maybe lunchtime today. Not saying it's fair. It's just an amazing double standard. Emmanuel Cleaver's not going to be out there protesting. I'm sorry, he's not going to do it.
You musty moo moo moo.
And you know why. He is a musty moo moo. But there's no political advantage for him going out there and protesting those 90 layoffs. Because also they know, and they would say, well, you know what? That's what happens. Sometimes businesses make decisions. And that's true. But God forbid the government does something like that, right? God forbid the government says, boy, we got to tighten the belt a little bit here. We got $36 trillion in debt. We're running a $2 trillion annual deficit. If the government ever does that, massive protests, news trucks all over the IRS building. Get the union reps. Somebody get the union reps on the horn. No, let's try to make a more efficient operation. You're not allowed to do that in government, apparently. So this will be a story till maybe tonight, and then everybody will forget about it, despite the fact that 90 workers are losing their jobs out there in Lee's Summit at Briggs & Stratton. Basically the same number as the IRS dealt with here in the last few weeks. The IRS story will never end. The union suits will continue to get on local news whenever they want. They will fearmonger at every single turn. And they will only get one side of that story, which is, God forbid you ever cut a government job. Now, speaking of cutting government jobs, this was part of last night's town hall on News Nation. RFK Jr., Bobby Kennedy, head of Health and Human Services, was on the show with Bill O'Reilly, Stephen A. Smith, and Chris Cuomo. And Bill O'Reilly's going to be here this morning at 8:30, 2 hours away, to react to that town hall last night with President Trump. But this was one of the many good moments where RFK Jr. gets asked about employee cuts at Health and Human Services by Stephen A. Smith. And RFK Jr. gave a tremendous answer. I'll play the audio, but basically what RFK said was, hey, the health of the people of this country have not improved with the growth of the bureaucracy here at the HHS. So stop saying that if we cut jobs, it means we're going to be less healthy, because we have done nothing but grow the jobs, and we are less healthy as Americans than we've ever been. So those two things have zero correlation. Here was Stephen A. Smith and then RFK last night. You heard it right here, 8 to 10 p.m. on KCMO.
You got a lot of American citizens wondering how on earth are you going to ensure that we're going to become a healthier society with over 20,000 less employees to look over things and purview things to some degree. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say during the Biden administration, my agency grew by 38%, and Americans got sicker. So it's not throwing money at it or hiring people that is solving the problem. We have so much redundancy in our agency. We have 100 communications departments. We have 40 IT departments. We have 40 procurement departments. What we did is we're streamlining the agency and we're recalibrating its trajectory so that people there are narrowly focused on one issue, which is how do we end the chronic disease epidemic. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans had chronic disease. Today it's 60%. It's costing us $1.6 trillion a year. About 95% of our healthcare budget is going to chronic disease. When my uncle was president, we spent zero on chronic disease. 74% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. So this is an existential threat to our national security. It's an existential threat to our economy. And we have to narrowly focus on that. And that's what the new HHS is doing.
That was an excellent answer.
That's O'Reilly on the back end. That's a great answer, Bobby. And he's right. That is a tremendous answer. He came with the facts, the data, undeniable. Yeah, we've cut a ton of jobs at HHS. You know why? Because the government growth has nothing to do with the health of our population. There is no correlation there, is what Kennedy's saying. So, and I'm not, listen, Stephen A. is allowed to ask whatever question he wants to Bobby Kennedy. And I'm glad he asked that question because it was answered perfectly by RFK Jr. there. And you heard that last night right here on KCMO, that News Nation town hall. We saw a 38% growth at the HHS agency under Joe Biden because Biden was goosing the jobs numbers every single month by growing the government. That's what he was doing. You heard Bobby say there, 100 communications departments, 40 IT departments. We are streamlining the agency. Why would you not want that? Unless you just want to grow a government to the point where it's unsustainable by the private sector, why would you not want that? As he went on to say there, when JFK was president, 3% of Americans had chronic diseases. We are now at 60%. We spend $1.6 trillion a year on chronic diseases. Streamline HHS, get this country to focus on its own health again. And it starts with the kids, where, as he noted there, 74% of kids today can't qualify physically for military service. We are destroying ourselves as a country, as China has a 50 to 100-year plan to eat our lunch, literally and figuratively. Although I guess we're eating their lunch literally while they eat our lunch figuratively is probably the better way to frame it. That is something that needs to be just blasted out all over the place by the Trump administration. It's very similar to when we talk about the schools, whether it's here in the Kansas City area or anywhere else in the country. We are spending more money than ever on our schools to grow an administration that has nothing to do with the teachers and the kids in the classrooms, because they've become jobs programs for adults. The HHS sounds like it's become just another government jobs program. Is it making Americans healthier? Well, there's zero evidence to suggest that it is. None whatsoever. When you look at how much money we're spending on chronic diseases, the percentage of chronic diseases that we have in America today, there's absolutely nothing that that agency could point to and say more money spent with us, more jobs with us, leads to a healthier society. So then what's the point? What's the point of them being as big and bloated as they are? And RFK just rocked it with that answer last night. It's one of the best answers I've heard from anybody in the Trump administration in 100 days on any subject. And that I mean, I will beat that one to death throughout the morning, because that is just an incredible response to a question that, you know, the Kansas City Star has brought up as well. Oh, if we don't have IRS workers and we don't have health workers, oh, we're all going to die and no one's going to get their taxes back. Stop. You can streamline. I know that's a word that's foreign to many of you, but you can streamline. Oh, O'Reilly was rocking that boat last night on News Nation. Town Hall with President Trump that you heard here on KCMO Talk Radio from 8 to 10. Here he was laying into the Raging Cajun, James Carville.
This is your propaganda,
Did
Jim.
he say I'm not? Did he say or not say I'm going to end
It's
the
a bunch
Ukraine
of
war?
bull, and you know it. No, you can't. You can't say it's in the budget. There's a Medicaid cut when there isn't.
There you go. Bill O'Reilly last night. You heard it here on KCMO. Bill is going to be on the show in just over 1 hour, 8:30. Do not miss it. If you're at the office, stream it at KCMOTalkRadio.com or on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So always good to have Bill on. After that big town hall last night, it is going to be a great conversation 1 hour from now. We got the Kansas tickets in 20 minutes as well. Quentin Lucas is 10 minutes away. So, Tiananmen Timmy Walls, back in the mix this week. And something he said yesterday at Harvard really stood out to me. He was talking about how, you know, he was put on the ballot with Kamala Harris to make it okay for white guys to vote for his ticket. And it's like, dude, this is exactly why you guys lost and why you got blown out in that particular demographic.
I knew I was on the ticket. I would argue because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota that improved people's lives. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, you know, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this. And you look across those swing states, with the exception of Minnesota, we didn't get enough of those.
I was code talk for white guys who watch football and fix their truck to vote for us, John.
Well, we were code talking out in the hall today, right?
Yeah.
Like any guy that uses code talk and permission structure needs to have the man card yanked right now, or at least suspended for 30 days.
At least suspended. I mean, put him to pasture. Man.
I was code talking with some buddies of mine over a
Who
couple
says
of pops.
that?
We're out on the golf course here, gave each other permission structure to cheat a little on the final score.
I mean, just the way he's talking is exactly why he didn't connect. I mean, the policies certainly didn't connect because the party's basically at a war on white dudes for years now. And then you wonder why they're like, yeah, I'm not going to vote for that. But don't worry. They believed in their hearts of heart that if they put a white male on the ticket, magically white guys would just be like, well, he's a white guy, so maybe I'll vote for them. See, that's not how regular people of any background think. And this is their problem. The party itself, Democratic Party, breaks people into these subsets and these buckets of like black guys, black women, white guys, white women, Hispanic men, Hispanic women, Asians, transgender, LGBT, mixed race. They just have all these buckets for people instead of saying what actually connects. Donald Trump led a ticket with 2 white men, right? And by Republican standards, he got a historic number of black men to vote for him. Hispanics swung all the way to the right, and they did it with 2 white guys on the ticket. So maybe the skin color and the gender is not what Americans vote on, which I know is a novel concept to the left who just views us all through the prism of our gender, our sexual orientation, and our skin color.
That's right. They're worried about their appeal to white males. I don't think the message is resonating with the males of the minorities, as Archie Bunker would say, either. I don't think they gained many with black American males or Latin American males.
No, they didn't. See, Tim Walz appealed to nobody. Outside of boomer woke white men.
Maybe his wife.
And the Jen Psaki crowd that thought, hey, this guy coached football. And he's white, so white guys might like him because he's an old ball coach. Okay, he's no Bill Parcells, all right? He's not Nick Saban. Trust me.
Barely a Belichick.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Just how out of touch is that moment right there from Tim Walz to have no idea and no ability to self-reflect on why things went the way they did back on November 5. And he's still convinced that I was just there to code talk the white guys. Man, you ain't getting it. Not even close. All right, real quick note. You just heard Wendy mention the traffic. I-29 northbound up by the airport being shut down. So the Kansas City Fire Department has confirmed to KCTV5 that the shutdown at Cookingham Drive was due to a shooting. So right now it's a mess up by the airport on I-29 both ways. Southbound was shut down for about 30 minutes, reopened here a few minutes ago. KCTV5 just reached out to police for further information, and when we get more on that story, we'll update you, but you can see it. It is messy up by the airport, so if you've got to get to the airport this morning, give yourself plenty of time because things are backed up in both directions after apparently a shooting took place on I-29 here in the last hour or so. So give yourself time on that. In the meantime, things going on today in town. We got a little protest. Woo! That's right. Kansas City May Day will be taking place 4 p.m. this afternoon. Now, John sent this to me. It's mobilize.us May Day event here in Kansas City. It says that the event's address is private. You got to sign up. Oh, no, excuse me. I got it here. I just got to scroll down. The graphics said it was a private event, but it says here that it's taking place at 4 p.m. at Davis Park here in town. So go out there.
COVID-19 restrictions apply, I was noted there. It's also flat terrain so that makes it accessible, I guess, or easily accessible.
Look at this. COVID-19 safety protocols for an event on May 1st of 2025. So that's just so people actually don't know if any of their employees are out there skipping work to protest. I mean, come on. They write here across the country, from fruit fields in California to classrooms in Chicago, from kitchens in Queens to loading docks in Atlanta to right here in Kansas City. Working people are rising up. The description says, Musk, Trump, and their fellow profiteers are trying to create a race to the bottom on wages, on benefits, on dignity itself. They want to erase labor rights, break our unions, and silence immigrant voices. That ain't right.
Yeah,
All
but
caps.
that's exactly what it said. I read that.
Yeah.
That ain't right.
May Day 2025, we are standing united. When are these people going to realize that Elon Musk doesn't need your grandma's Social Security check? Like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, their fellow profiteers. Here's the amazing part. The people they knock all got rich in the private sector, whereas all the people that they like, all the people that they vote for, magically got rich after they became members of Congress. Think about that, right? The people that they prefer to be in office largely got wealthy after they became members of Congress. And the people that they insist are trying to screw the little guy are all people, by and large, who got wealthy on their own accord in the private sector and then got into government. But somehow they're the ones who had the foresight, the ideas, and the business acumen to get wealthy on their own accord. They're the ones who somehow are in government to screw the little guy. The race to the bottom is being driven by a party that wants to see a massive, bloated, oversized government that will devalue the dollar, that will make it so the only job where you can get somewhat ahead is in the government, right? That's it. And eventually, the private sector cannot keep up to fund the government that you want to keep growing. I just explained that in 90 seconds. But if I tried to explain that to them today at the rally, no matter what I was wearing, I could be wearing my Sunday best, or I could be wearing, I don't know. I could wear a Speedo as well. I don't think it would really matter. I wouldn't get that through, John.
I've made my choice, by the way. Now, nothing says grassroots like a corporate logo, and as you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you see where the other events with the same corporate logo are occurring across the country.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's grassroots. I decided, the PLO colors, that green and black and red, are so harsh, I look washed out. The blue and the Ukrainian flag goes with my eyes, so I think I'm going to wear the blue today when I go down there.
Are you going to wear the blue and you're going to wrap yourself in a Ukrainian flag?
Well, I've got to have a mask.
Yeah, that's true.
And those, the blue masks, they go with my eyes too, and the Ukrainian flag. So that'll be easy.
All right. Well, you got your outfit picked out.
You got to coordinate.
Yeah. Well, Mark's got his Seattle Mariners hat on. That should fit in well with the way Seattle operates.
Chest chop.
Yeah. You're going to be a big hit down there, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
When we all head down there today. That's going to be a grand old time. Can't wait. Wear your masks, boys and girls. Okay? We'll see you down there. Coming up next, how is the media covering this shocking report on the Tesla alleged arsonist on State Line Road, who a judge let walk out of jail because you're not going to believe it. He has to get his hormone therapy. I kid you not. This is not satire. It's not. It's amazing that this is the next layer of this story after an arsonist was arrested, Owen McIntyre, out of the Northland for the fires at the Tesla dealership on State Line Road back in mid-March. But as it now turns out, Owen McIntyre was released after being arrested earlier this month in Massachusetts, facing federal charges in the Western District of Missouri for allegedly using homemade incendiary devices to ignite 2 electric vehicles at that Tesla dealership on March 17th. Well, what happened? The judge said, you're good. All right, no worries. And why did the judge do that? Well, Owen McIntyre is being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, depression, and gender dysphoria. And the judge released him in part because he requires daily medication and treatment. A court filing from the judge reads he is also receiving gender-affirming medical care, which began in March of this year, and is likely to be interrupted or terminated entirely if he remains in pretrial detention. This care, writes the judge, along with mental health support, is integral to his well-being. By moving back home with his parents, he will have access to the care providers who are familiar with him and his specific needs. So the judge in Massachusetts sent him home here to Missouri so he can continue to get what they claim is the mental health support that he needs, that is integral to his well-being, and also continue to get whatever it is he's taking for daily medication and treatment related to his, quote, gender-affirming medical care. Now, credit to Fox 4 and to KMBC, Channel 9, for reporting those facts. Look at what happened here. I just read the article in the Kansas City Star that was buried. I mean, there's like 37 articles on the Star homepage before you get to this one. It is nowhere near the top of the homepage, okay? I mean, you got everything and anything under the sun. They got a story on Bill Belichick before they got a story on this. To Kansas City newspaper, and this is buried 2/3 of the way down the homepage. Headline, Missouri man charged in Tesla dealership fire, released from federal custody ahead of trial. That's the headline for the Kansas City Star. And at nowhere, not a single line in this article, do they refer to what the judge said for why he released this individual. All the Star says here is that a man charged in federal court with setting a fire at a Tesla dealership in Kansas City was released from federal custody ahead of his Thursday hearing. Owen McIntyre, 19 of Parkville, allegedly made an incendiary device known as a Molotov cocktail and attempted to use it to set a fire at the Tesla dealership. Well, he actually did that. I mean, I know it's allegedly, but he actually did do that. Not attempted to do it. He did do it. They say he was charged with malicious damage to property and possession of an unregistered destructive device. Go on from here. Here's what happened back on March 17th, allegedly, blah, blah, blah. At no point do they reference the specific filings from the judge that refers to the need to access gender-affirming care. Channel 9 did it. Fox 4 did it. Didn't see it from 5. Didn't even bother with Woke 41. And forget National Panhandler Radio in town, KCUR. They're not going to touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. That's how your local media is choosing to cover or not cover the story. I will give the credit where it's due. But Kansas City Star, not even referencing the why behind any of this. I don't want to beat them up on a regular basis, but they keep giving me a reason to. I don't know what else to say. If they keep giving you a reason to do something, I'll just keep knocking it right out of the park, I guess. If you're going to put it on a tee for me and do such a bad job of journalisming, then, yeah, sure, I'll keep going here, John.
You suppose they did it on purpose? It's not just column inches or something?
No. This is not a column inches.
Space.
Yeah, no.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure. Can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt, but I'm pretty confident in that one.
Yep.
I also know this. Next time I get arrested, I'm breaking out my wig and my purse because apparently that's enough to get you, released by a judge, at least in certain parts of the country.
Well, don't be gauche. You can wear white from now till Labor Day.
That's true.
So be
That's
sure
true.
to have white with you.
Yeah, preferably a white dress I'll slip into before I, see
Modest
the cop.
but chic, of course.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll have my mask, too. Steve in KCK, what's up?
Hey, Pete, I'm kind of question, it's like maybe the federal charge, if they federal charges, we still have state laws and state charges, maybe that'd be a good question for the mayor, He did do this in Kansas City, Missouri, and we do have laws here.
Listen, I'm not a lawyer, but once the feds take this one over, that's it. DOJ took this over, Pam Bondi took it over, and I guess there could be something else. But listen,
I maybe think Letitia James can pick up charges on Trump in New York. I don't know why we couldn't do the same. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Listen, I'll trust Pam Bondi's crew to do her thing. The problem here is you got a judge in Massachusetts making the call. Once again, you got rogue judges who are obviously highly political. This individual started with the gender-affirming treatment, got my air quotes up, I know you can't see, back in March. And March 17th, the guy tries to light a Tesla dealership on fire or whatever, Molotov cocktails on the Cybertrucks. I mean, I'd love to see, because no one's ever wanted to talk about this, but the studies that are done on what a 19-year-old male who is just burning up with testosterone, what happens to the brain when that person starts, apparently, based on what the judge is saying, going on estrogen. So this person starts those treatments in March, and within 2.5 weeks, he's trying to light a Tesla dealer on fire? Maybe it's just a coincidence. I'm not saying it can't be.
Pretty sure it is.
It could be a total coincidence. But then again, I mean, does anyone want to research that? Or no, do we just have to affirm somebody's belief on what they think they are? And you can't ask any questions, because if you do, well, you get called a phobe and every other name in the book. Let's go to Carl, Independence. Go ahead, Carl. You're on KCMO Talk Radio.
Hi, Pete. I'm just curious that if this alleged arsonist is convicted and sent to a penitentiary, are we as the taxpayers going to continue to pay for his gender-affirming care medication? Are we on the hook for this?
I
And
I don't know.
What facility will we send him to? As to the boys' club or the girls' club?
Yeah. I mean, what prison do you end up in, right? I mean, you should end up in the prison that you biologically are. But listen, let's just get a conviction first, all right?
Oh, well done. Let's go there.
All right, let's go there. There you go there.
Back when we played baseball, sometimes the coach would go by and make sure you're wearing your cup.
Yeah.
Maybe we got to do that again.
There you go. You can do the old cluck cluck there, Mark. You like that?
Yep.
Yeah. You do a much better cluck than I do.
Boys, we'll be checking with a 9-iron today.
Scott is in Olathe. What's up, Scott? You're on KCMO Talk Radio.
Pete, long-time listener, first-time caller. I want to talk about your last story about that guy up north with the autism, ADD, and the gender stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you, I got a couple of those. I won't tell you which ones because it's nobody's business. What I will say is I still got all my body parts and I don't got purple hair. And sometimes I take stuff too literally. So my question is, can I use that as an excuse to go blowing up stuff now and get away with it? Is that okay? Is that how that works?
That's my understanding. Like I said, I'm just going to have it in the back seat of the car. I'm going to have a wig, a purse, maybe a dress. So if I do something illegal, my out is going to be, hey, listen, I'm a woman. I got to take care of some things here. And apparently you get let off the hook, at least for the short term.
Well, I don't know where the closest dress store is, and I could go get one.
You got a wife or a girlfriend you can borrow from?
I do.
Okay. I mean, let's be honest. All our wives and girlfriends have dresses they don't wear anymore. Just grab one of those.
That's a good point.
All right.
I will say,
I'm just here to help, Scott. That's my only goal, buddy.
I appreciate it. With Autism Awareness Month, man, it's nice to talk about that. That's not one of the stories I wish would get highlighted because that's just ridiculous. I appreciate you, Pete.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the story here I don't think is about autism. I don't. I mean, listen, there are a lot of people dealing with autism, and none of them are going to go light a Tesla dealership on fire or try to do that. That's not the story here. The story is, and the judge clearly, this is not about autism. The judge clearly noted that this person is getting gender-affirming care, and that's part of the reason that they are not in jail right now. Jay and Gladstone, you're on KCMO.
Hey, I was going to research that link between estrogen and, somebody kind of losing their marbles. But I spent all my research money going to the Caribbean to study architecture and art. Hurricanes.
Nice job there, Jay. Well done there, buddy. I love that. That's good work by you, brother.
Have a good one.
All right. Jay's been listening this morning. He's on it, man.
Yeah, touche.
Hey, I got to give props where it's due. That's a good job by Jay.
I just thought about this. It doesn't have a specific date in March, so they could have lit the Tesla thing on fire and then started maybe after that. And if that's the case, they're trying to get out of jail with that.
So the other...
Oh, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we don't have the dates in March and when all this started, right? So the other way to get out of jail is to commit a crime and then start taking your estrogen the next day. Hey, man, people will do a lot of things to avoid the law, I suppose. Geez. And Jay referencing the Kansas City Star, who was outraged about Trump's first 100 days. I did this at 7 o'clock, and their example was a UMKC professor who is no longer getting a $60,000 fellowship from the National Endowment for Humanities that he was going to use to complete a book on, quote, Caribbean artistic and architectural responses to hurricanes during the 1920s and the 1930s. That was the first example the Kansas City Star used in their editorial today on why Trump's first 100 days has a real impact on Missourians and Kansans. It is straight out of the Babylon Bee. Just unbelievable stuff. So good job there. Shout out to Jay, a P1 here on KCMO Talk Radio. Well done there, buddy. Nice job. Very, very well done.
Such a nice man.
All right, Bill O'Reilly is about 15 minutes away. Big town hall last night presented by News Nation. O'Reilly, Chris Cuomo, Stephen A. Smith, Steve Bannon, James Carville. They were all there last night. President Trump as well. Bill O'Reilly is 15 minutes away. Do not miss that conversation here on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. You may have heard it here last night, 8 to 10 p.m. on KCMO, the News Nation Town Hall featuring President Trump, moderated by Bill O'Reilly, Chris Cuomo, and Stephen A. Smith. And Bill O'Reilly is going to be here in 10 minutes to react to that big town hall last night. But the president joined them to open up the show for about 30 minutes. He gave him a good 30 minutes. And the first question that Bill O'Reilly asked President Trump was about recent polling that is not cutting in his favor.
Mr. President, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So a series of rough polls this week, and I'm wondering how you process that. Does it hurt your feelings when you see numbers come in that are not what you'd like them to be?
Well, first of all, they're fake polls. And if you take a look at the polls, they interviewed more, and for the most part, they interviewed more Democrats than they did Republicans, which is ridiculous and unfair. And Democrats aren't voting for Trump. And you look at him, John McLaughlin, who's the most respected pollster, said I'm at 50, 55, and maybe even higher than that. And he said that these polls are largely fake. When you look at the New York Times, when you look at the Washington Post, ABC, they predicted I was going to lose Wisconsin by 17 points, and they ended up winning Wisconsin. They predicted I was going to lose the election, and I ended up winning the election. They're fake polls, number one. And I think it's a very important thing to know that and to understand it. And because polls are no different than fake writers or journalism, and it's not a pretty thing when you watch. So when you say, am I bothered by it? If I was, I'd be really helped by the fact that in the election, we won in a landslide. We won the popular vote. We won the swing states.
So clearly, the president is not sweating bad polling, at least not right now. And he's right to point out that these polls have historically been wrong on everything Trump, going back to 2016, all the way through 2020 when it seemed like he didn't have a shot, and he really lost that election by what? A handful of votes in places like Georgia and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin. And then fast forward to 24, and the day before the election, a lot of polling, the Marist poll we told you about yesterday had the guy down 4 points in the popular vote to Kamala Harris and losing. He wins every swing state and wins the popular vote. So he's fair to say, hey, these polls have always undercounted me, so I don't buy them. I don't lean into it. But he also knows that the overriding theme and concern that Americans have right now for the administration is driven largely by the tariff issue. So how did the president go on to explain that last night? We'll ask Bill O'Reilly in 10 minutes, but here's what the president said.
The problem is Chris, I have to be flexible because as you do things in life and in business, you need flexibility. You can't just be hard line and I'm going to run right through a wall and I'm never going to go over it or around it. I'm going to go straight. You have to be able to dodge and move and be flexible, and especially in business. Now, with the cars, I'm getting a 25% tariff for the people. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars, but they're hurt because they can't switch over 100% of the content of the car within a very short period of time. So they came to see me. I understood their problem, and I gave them a period of a year where I brought it down, and then another year. So I gave them a short period, 2 years, where they have to be switched over 100%, where every single part in the car is made in the USA. Now, if I didn't do that, it would have been very, very tough for them. And so what I am is flexible. And if I didn't do that, it would be very tough for these companies. And these companies, it's a transition period, Chris. And transition's an important word because as you do things, you'll say, well, it's like being on the battlefield. You're on the battlefield. Sometimes you're going to move to the left flank, but then you end up moving to the right flank. And it's very much like that in business. And frankly, it's very much like that in life.
So that's the president laying it all out, which even if you don't agree with him, tell me how that doesn't make sense in terms of what the strategy is that he's going for here. And talking about how we've got to transition and work with these companies. A lot of transition talk, by the way, this hour for different reasons. But he brings up the point of, hey, we're doing this, and I'm trying to work with these companies to get them to bring some of this business back to the United States. But I know as a business guy, it won't happen next week or next month. So I'm trying to work with the companies to do best by them. And that is notable and admirable in and of itself.